Okay, so this was the first lecture that we did for the coordinate geometry. We discussed midpoint reversal, midpoint, distance, gradient, and finding out the equation of line. Let's move further. We need to understand that there are a few concepts that are also linked. Concept number one, if line intersect x-axis, y is equal to 0. If line intersect y-axis, your x coordinate will be 0. What does this really means? For suppose you have this y-axis and x-axis. This is your x-axis. Let's say this becomes your y-axis. And there's a line that crosses both the axes. So at this point, your y will be 0. That means you already know that this line, the red line, is intersecting what? Your x-axis. Similarly, your red line is intersecting y-axis. When the line intersects x-axis, y-coordinate is 0. And when the line intersects y-axis, your x-coordinate will be 0. Now, why is this important? Because there would be questions. Now you need to understand how the question will be given to you. For suppose, equation of line is equal to y is equal to minus 2x plus 5. Let's say this is your equation of line. And the examiner tells you, find coordinate of x-axis. This will be what the examiner would ask, or the examiner can ask you, find coordinate of y-axis. Now, in this regard, you already know that the equation is given. And the equation is y is equal to minus 2x plus 5. That means that this is particularly equation of the line. That means this line has an equation which is y is equal to minus 2x plus 5. That means if I substitute any value in x, I should be getting y. If I substitute any value of y, I should also get x. So that means if I say I need to have the x coordinate, x-axis coordinate. For x-axis coordinate, your y should be 0. So what I need to do is y is equal to minus 2x plus 5. I need to write down 0 in place of y, minus 2x plus 5. So that means minus 2x goes on that side, becomes what? Positive 2x. Since 2 is being multiplied, it should give divided. So the x coordinate is 5 upon 2. What will be the coordinate? The coordinate would be 5 upon 2, comma 0. Why did we do this? Because we always write x and y as your coordinates. Now looking at part 2, the question says find coordinate of what? Y-axis. With the same equation, that is y is equal to minus 2x plus 5. So what I need to do is, I can write down the equation which is y is equal to minus 2x plus 5. And the question says coordinate of intersecting coordinate of y-axis. Now, when I need intersecting coordinate of y-axis, your x should be what? 0. So that means the equation was y is equal to minus 2x plus 5. The equation was y is equal to minus 2x plus 5. So I need to substitute 0 in place of x. So anything multiplied by 0 becomes 0. So y is what? 5. So that means the coordinate of x-axis will be 0, comma 5. So this will be the coordinate of the line intersecting y-axis. Okay. Since we did x-axis and y-axis coordinate, there is another important concept, which is if the line is parallel to x-axis, gradient is 0. If the line is parallel to x-axis, gradient is 0. And at each point of x, y coordinate will be same. Now, this concept is important as well. How do we solve this concept? How do we solve this concept? The question says, if the line is parallel to x-axis, gradient is 0. And at each point of x, your y coordinate will be same. What does this mean? See, if I prepare a graph, there is an x-axis and there is also a y-axis, right? What does parallel line do? Parallel line is line which is parallel to x-axis, which is going in the same direction. See, if x-axis is horizontal, that means your parallel line to the x-axis will also be horizontal. Now, at this point, you need to understand that your x-axis gradient is always 0. So this line is parallel to x-axis. That means this line will also have gradient as what? 0. But most importantly is the second point, which says at each point of x, your y coordinate will be same. What does this mean? If I say that this is your y coordinate is 10 here, and let's take this as 3, let's take this as 7, or let's take this as 9, or let's take this as 11. Now, for each point, can I say this particular point on the x-axis will be 3, 10. This particular point will be 7, 10. This point will be 9, 10. This point should be 11, 10. Now, what does it represent? It represents the same statement. At each point of x, y coordinate will be same because it is parallel to the x-axis. Now, if I tell you that if the line is parallel to x-axis, there is another concept, that is, if the line is parallel to y-axis, gradient will be infinity. Gradient will be infinity. And at each point of y, x coordinate will be same. If I represent this as on the graph, this is your x-axis, this becomes your y-axis. If I say a line is parallel to what? A line is parallel to what? Y-axis now. Since it is parallel to what? Y-axis. This is your y-axis. And there's a line that is parallel to what? The green line is parallel to what? Y-axis. Now, just randomly, if I take an example that this is 7 and I have y as 3, 5, and 9. So this point would be 7, 3. This point will be 7, 5. This point will be 7, 9. Because since this is parallel to y-axis, your x coordinate will remain same, but the y coordinate will keep on changing. This is just because the line is parallel to what? Y-axis.